You are listening to Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. Coming in hot, always fresh, never stale.
Nice tagline. That's kind of new, isn't it?
It is. I'm trying it out.
Do it again now. Do it again. Do it again.
You're welcome. You're listening to Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. Coming in hot and fresh, always fresh, never stale.
Now, did you just change it a little bit?
I
just
did.
kind of mixed it up a little bit?
Okay, you have
got
to
it.
improv it.
Okay.
I don't do everything the same.
I gotcha. My name is Brian Turner. You can call me BT. There's Lydia Turner right there. She's my daughter. I'm her dad.
Hey, Podcast Phil.
How you doing out there? Welcome to another edition of Foodie Friday. We got some hitters here. We got some hitters in the Alive and Social Network studios. We do. Master Baker and CEO of the St. Agnes Baking Company. There's Klecko. Say hi to Klecko.
Hi, Klecko.
Hey, guys, Capital City. I'm over here on the other side of the ocean. Let's get it going.
The hopeful next mayor.
Well, not even hopeful.
It's happening.
There we go. See, I like that. That's a note of optimism that I was hoping for from one Klecko. And you know him from WCCO TV, and you know him from Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine. Bon vivant, man about town, and he likes to eat. And his name is Jason DeRusha. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Good to have you here, Dad, man.
Yes. Here off of a very hot school engagement with the first graders today.
Nice.
Ooh.
So Dad Man duties indeed today.
They have been met. I tell you what, when you volunteer for the spring party duty, it seems like you're doing a nice thing, and then you're in a gym surrounded by 300 first, second, and third graders, and you're ready to hurl yourself off the top of the school building.
Do we need to do anything to maybe change the equalization audio-wise in your headphones? Because you've probably been, up against a whole lot of screaming.
I expected a lot more
You
screaming.
know, high-end voices and everything like that. So
Let's just say that this glass of water that you've provided is not exactly what I needed after a couple hours in the school.
Well, we'll just let you sip at it slowly, Jason, and we'll take it from there. Real good to have you guys both here. Real pleasure. In the interest of full disclosure here at the Alive and Social Studios, the funky house in South Minneapolis, the owner of the house is doing some repairs on the front door. So what I'm getting at is he was, before the show started, pounding quite a bit and opening and closing the
And
front
slamming the door.
And slamming the door. And I'm not going to say that we have, soundproof studios here, because we don't. And so if we hear any slamming or, any number of noises that sound like, maybe ghost-like activity or whatever the case may be.
House elves and
That's
the like.
what's happening in the background.
It's all good. We call it reality radio.
That's what it is. That's the podcast world. And if something tumbles and falls or we spill stuff, that's just a part of the gig as well. That's what it's
Anything
all about.
could happen.
Anything could happen indeed. Klecko, what drove you to become a baker, Mr. Danny McGleno, Mr. Klecko?
Well, it all started back in 1976.
This is getting a little Ted Baxter-like now.
when-
A small 5,000-watt bakery in South Dakota.
No, actually, I went to the same junior high school as Taste Editor Lee Svitakdin of the Star Tribune. And in 1976, they made it mandatory when I was in the 7th grade that boys and girls had to take both home ec and industrial arts.
Dig that.
And so, I'm in the western suburbs. Everything's homogenized. It's all like white guys and stuff like that, saying when you go to school, make sure you complain about it and tell them you don't like this home ec thing. And that's straight up true. So first day, I got cooking class with Miss Williams, 6th period. And she put me in the corner with 3 women, and we made apple crisp. And I'll tell you, since then I've never touched a wrench. I mean, I love it. I'm into cooking, and I've been doing it for 35 years, and it's just something I enjoy doing.
Nice indeed. Dunwoody was the start on a vocational level, though, huh?
Right back in the day, Dunwoody was the second best baking institution in the nation. Other than American Institute of Baking in Manhattan, Kansas, which I went on later to, do some cameo gigs. But Dunwoody was it. So, the difference, a lot of times we're kind of cult figures in the culinary world because chefs are intimidated by us because they know that we're crazier than them because we're nocturnal. And
This is true.
And we understand science. So there's no lying, your way out of something. You mess it up, science is going to take that bread or that pastry and destroy it. So, you have to be a little bit of a Dr. Frankenstein and a vampire at night to make this happen.
What's a bedtime like for you, man?
It just, I've been doing it for so many years, and I've had so many jobs within the system that, I mean, I've started at 3 a.m., 11 p.m. Now kind of the monk about town. I go around and hug and kiss people when we make mistakes, when they make mistakes. So my phone might ring at 2 in the morning. And if it's, I go, so it's never the same 3 days in a row. But for all practical purposes, most of the people who are bakers sleep in 2 or 3 hour periods, get up for 20, 30 minutes, and then you talk to most of them. That's kind of normal.
Now, I had read that you're from a Polish family.
That's right.
Bread means everything to you. I have also read you quoting to someone. And you had mentioned that one of your very first food memories was at Blackie's, and it was Blackie's blackened bread.
Yeah, if you're Polish, many of us, you grew up without money, without resources. Our relatives were blue-collar workers. My family came from Los Angeles. From Los Angeles to the Twin Cities, kind of northeast, western suburbs, whatever, we were poor. And so we would go to Blackie's Bakery, and they would give us, black bread. We weren't even going after, Danish or different things like that. We were going after the bread because, not only was it sweet and nurturing, but there was something holy about it. When you're a kid, you don't understand that, but you feel it, and so you'd eat it and you'd bring it with you. And those old guys that ran it, too, they knew who the poor kids were, so they would give you extra things and stuff like that. So, to this day, you think back, and so I miss them. They're gone. They got bought out by, like, Danish people, and after that, nothing against the Danes, but, they're not Polacks, right?
No.
So
there's a reason there's not a lot of Danish jokes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Just not that interesting.
That's right. That's right.
You and your collective socialism, you Danes, you.
Yeah.
What the heck?
And what is it they eat? I can't even pronounce it. Ebelskivers or whatever.
Ebelskivers.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Is it a donut? Is it a round pancake? What the heck is that?
It's out of my spectrum.
What do you got going on? Give us an idea if we don't know, because I don't know actually. What's black bread? What's black bread? Well, I think I know what it is, but I want to get it from the perspective of you, the baker guy.
Let's talk about the scandal. Let's talk about the scandal. America.
I didn't know I opened a door on scandal.
You did, and I'm pissed off.
Take a seat.
America, you're getting ripped off. With dark breads, black breads, marble breads, there used to be an unwritten code in the Baking Guild, which has been washed out when corporations started getting into my field, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago. A marble bread, every baker knew without looking in the book it was 75% dark, 25% white. Now you go in the grocery store.
Doesn't seem that percentage is there.
Now it's 50-50, and they've reduced the sweetening agents. See, what happened probably about 7 or 8 years ago, a 55-gallon drum of honey went from $488 to $1,012 overnight. And everyone panicked. They didn't know what to do. So they stopped taking the honey and the molasses out, and they were just using corn syrup and liquid caramel color, which is basically just a dye. And then so we get...
Those are fighting words. I get the feeling those terms right there.
Well, it's uncool because back then, too, people weren't... as label conscious as they are now. So we get numbers in from Chicago every year that talk about food, endangered species, and black breads were on it. And it wasn't that people understood what was taking place, but they just realized it didn't taste good. So there was a resurgence, 4 years ago, something like that, where people started, putting some honey in it or some molasses. But with us, at St. Angus Baking Company, we eat honey, molasses, and cocoa, which is the total Polish, Czech, Ukrainian trick to make it flip over. But black breads are also nice too because it's the one bread. If you stood at it at a bread table at a state fair for a decade, you'll learn women eat whole grain, men eat white bread, but black bread is gender neutral. So
there's something about the racial divide that we could use as a metaphor there.
No, absolutely. And what's interesting too, I got called up by Arlington High School because they saw me in the newspaper and they said, "You want to come and talk to?" We had like 30 kids from 24 different countries. None of these kids were born in America, and so I made breads from their prospective countries or regions. And it's interesting, kids you don't even meet. I had young Somalian women who afterwards would come up and put their hand on my shoulder and thank me. And the teacher would say, They're not even supposed to do that. That's like, kind of taboo, but they were so touched by getting, it's like, you're creating a passport back to these people's, not necessarily just their countries, but to their happier experiences, to relatives, to people that have, touched their life and stuff like that. So
bread is one of those foods, though. I mean, they call it breaking bread for a reason, but it does connect you. There's something, I mean, I'm very into this idea of food memories, that people focus so much on the technical aspect of food these days, but for most people, the enjoyment of food has to do with a memory that's either being triggered or being created. And to me, bread is really one of those foods that takes you back to that childhood moment.
Well, and that's a great point. I mean, if you travel, I've done all kinds of gigs in Russia, from the northern part of the Siberian Arctic down to help them put together the bid for Sochi, like working in the bakeries and things like that. And it's interesting. That's a country where the government fixes the price on bread because people have starved. I mean, our country is not ever been subjected to, well, maybe they have grapes or that stuff, but I mean, on a wide scale basis, or now you go to Russia, the government tells the bakery how much they can charge, so they don't get the sex appeal with the different interesting varieties, but they don't care. They're just thankful to have a loaf of bread on their table.
Well, and there's something so super evocative about bread, too. I remember our family went to Austria around Christmas time, and there's it's one of the oldest bakeries in Salzburg. And you have to go down the stairs, and they're using all of the same ovens that they used hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Medieval ovens,
yeah.
Sure. The 12th, 13th century.
But you get this round, dark piece of bread, and my mom held it in her coat for the rest of the day and was warm for the rest of the day.
Yep.
But breaking bread and sharing bread.
It's a living thing. You kind of get a God complex. You're back there, and you take these different structures and create a ecosystem that will feed and nurture a community. It's kind of a nice thing, fresh things on people's doorstep. But it's all changing. It's all getting to be frozen and shipped in. And we've got 50,000 restaurants in the Twin Cities, and 94% of them are getting all their products off the back of the same trucks and stuff like that. What I do for a living, I mean, I get concerned that 20 years from now, very few people will know how to do it. When I started 30 years ago, there was thousands of people who knew how to do what I do at my level. Now there's not so many because it's, no health care, things like you got to be married to a nurse if you want to, be able to go to the doctor and stuff like that. It's a cash grab, right?
You have justifiable concern there. I mean, this is a craft, and it's something that people need to study, and they're nurtured in the job and nurtured in the field. And so to say that there's a diminishment of it really speaks volumes about how, like you said, how we bring food into our world now, just not only restaurants, but how we bring it into our homes and whatever.
Well, and it's not just America. I mean, when you do what I do, I mean, I talk to people all over the world every day, through social media and stuff like that. But in Paris, there's no one on bicycles with a baguette in their basket on the bike or whatever. I mean,
You're telling me that's a stereotype?
I'm telling you, baby, that stuff is getting made in the suburbs and shipped in, no different than, some of our major coffee retailers and things like that. I mean, I went to get coffee this morning. There's a muffin that was fluorescent green, and then it's
that wasn't made around the corner, is what you're saying.
Exactly,
No.
It was pistachio, but it was probably made in Newark or something like that.
Right.
So
it is interesting to hear you say this, though, because at the same time that on the commercial bakery side we're seeing an increased commercialization, we've seen, I think, the foodie crowd listening to this is going to think, "What are you talking about?" There's new bakeries opening on every street in the city, but it's a different craft, isn't it?
It is, and
it's much smaller business.
Well,
I mean, let's be honest. These small bakeries aren't doing what we're talking about at the level you guys are doing.
Well, it is, and we call those boutique bakers. We're wholesale, and it's kind of
they're cute.
Well, they irritate me, but when a chef comes in the room, I link arms with the boutique baker, and then we're family. It's kind of like I hate Packers fans until the Bears people come in the room, right? So, but you bring up a very good point. And when it's interesting, but when we were kids, I'm 51 years old. Every neighborhood had a bakery on the corner,
Yeah.
And so those numbers. Talk to RBA, Retail Bakers of America. numbers have gone down in the 80 percentile in the last 20 years. So when these places come up, it's great. However, we need to get good foods, healthy foods that can get into our school systems and into our stadiums. I mean, when you go to a stadium and pay like $20 for a hamburger or whatever it is, I mean, that bun you're getting is like a month old. And so you would think for the price you're paying, you'd be getting something fresh without preservatives. But it's just the way food is handled and shipped and things like that changes it. So, but, South Minneapolis, where we sit today, John Krause over at Patisserie, I mean, he's wonderful. Sun Street Bakery, Solvig Tofty, wonderful. But, St. Paul, we don't have as many of those options as you do
That's
here
true.
in Minneapolis.
Yeah. You got to think that there's a bright light, though, still somewhere in the grocery world, because a lot of grocers, individual stores, whether they're attached to chains or not, a lot of them have the bakeries right in the store. So there's some benefit there, wouldn't you think?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, and I don't want Danny Klecko is the most optimistic person in the room. So, but I just got to be truthful with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a negative guy, but with those grocery stores, you walk into some of the major retailers, and they'll have like big ovens and stuff. But what you don't see. You don't see them really baking the bread because they're taking them out of the freezer and they're popping them on racks and they're par bake. And
There's no hand making
and then they're
of it.
finishing things that's coming from Peoria, it's coming from San Antonio, it's coming,
I see.
and oftentimes with preservatives. So at least, I mean, it's warm, which is nice, but and I get it. I mean, they're trying to be cost effective and stuff like that, but less jobs in your community now, and different. Health issues, preservatives. I mean, you'd just be amazed at the requests for preservatives and dough conditioners and things. I mean, they put things in your bread that they put into Dunlap tires. Just so you can run it through a machine. It's crazy.
Yeah. The food, the industrialization of the food world, we see it on all different levels, in the baking world included.
However, the independent grocery store is.
That's a different story then,
It's
perhaps.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And let's be optimistic about something. Farmers markets have become so competitive right now, and they're everywhere, which is good. So home bakers are able to bake and sell at them. But the independent grocery store, our numbers are going through the roof. And that's where we're investing our marketing time and things like that, because they'll go to the different local bakeries and restaurants and bring in the different, cheesemakers, places like that, and give them opportunities to platform what they're making.
No matter how big or small their operation is, and most of them are those smaller, family type operations.
Right.
Klecko's here. He's the CEO of St. Agnes Baking Company in St. Paul. I want you to tell us a little bit more in a bit about that operation. The history of St. Agnes, and the size of the operation, the kind of outreach you have in the community here. Jason DeRusha here from WCCO Television and Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine. Jason, I want you to piggyback on something you brought up a few minutes ago, which is the whole evocation of memory that comes from food, and it came in the context of us talking about bread with Klecko here. Do you have a strong imprint, a memory that goes back to bread or another food that really kind of brings an emotion forward for you, or a set of emotions forward for you?
Well, the bread I most remember from my childhood was the Irish soda bread from St. Patrick's Day. I mean, I can smell it right now. I can smell it. I can see my mom in the kitchen, that tiny little suburban Chicago kitchen I grew up. But just that scent and that idea of the food takes me right back. And I remember, like, she always made it without raisins. And one year she made it with raisins. And we hated it. She, burned the raisins. It was horrible.
That's right.
We're like, what are you doing? You're ruining. She's like, well, I've been making this for 30 years. We're like, we know. Keep making it. It's perfect.
Mom ruins the... Why are you kids crying? Mom ruins St. Patrick's
you don't
Day.
need to do it.
I was the judge for the soda bread competition several years running at the Irish Fair.
Sure.
And so I made a reference to this Irish soda bread that had raisins in it, and they almost lynched me because
Right.
because technically it's not a soda bread, it's a spotted dog, and I would say it with the Gaelic accent, but I'm not going to even attempt it. So
It just is funny. It takes you back right there. And I think some of the reason I've had some success being a voice in the food world in this community is the fact that I am not trained in the culinary arts, and I come at it, I think, more from the perspective of the average diner. I mean, certainly over the years of doing this, I'm more educated than the average diner. But I think because I'm in broadcasting, and you know this, BT, when you work in broadcasting, you don't think about the narrow crowd of the couple thousand people who go to every restaurant opening. You think about, I live in Maple Grove. I think about my neighbors who going out to a restaurant
Once
in the
every
city.
6 months, maybe, if that.
Twice a year, they'll come down to the city, and you better make sure that the recommendation you give is a good one.
Yep.
And so I'm always thinking about that, and I think that's helped me. Nothing against the real critics who really know what they're doing
And dig in and write about it and know what they're doing.
They're
Right.
outstanding.
Like you said, know what they're doing.
But it's like being a movie critic, right? At a certain point, you see so many films that you become excited by the weird stuff instead of just something that really is satisfying. And I think I hope I'm able to tap into that a little differently.
So let me ask, with the background that you have, was there a marked point in your career where you're like, you know what? I really like food. I really like interacting with food. I like talking about food. This could be something that I really move forward with.
My wife and I have talked about this because we don't go to concerts. We don't really go to movies. We go to eat, and it's just what we've done since we lived in Milwaukee. We moved through my career. I started in Davenport, Iowa, and then went to Milwaukee, and I've been here for 12 years.
Right.
But in Milwaukee, the restaurants there are just so fantastic, such a richness of ethnic restaurants.
I love that Brady Street in Milwaukee. That's
we
just
lived
fantastic.
1 block off of Brady
Off of
Street.
Brady,
is where we
yeah.
lived. It was fantastic.
Love Mima's, love all those shops there.
So we would go out to eat for fun. It's just what we did for fun. And we would explain, like my parents, oh, what are you guys doing tonight? Oh, we're going to dinner. Uh-huh. And what else? Like, nope, we're just going to dinner.
There it
That's
is.
the entertainment.
That's
yeah.
it. And so we've always enjoyed it, but it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was judging the local chef challenge that Minnesota Monthly put on at the convention center as part of their food and wine experience. And the editor was Dara Moskowitz-Grumdahl. And so she was running the competition. And the first day of the contest, so WCCO was co-sponsoring the contest. So we got to provide a judge, which I'll tell you what, the chefs who were competing for $5,000 couldn't have been more thrilled to have some idiots from the TV station judging. So the first day of judging, I was not one of the judges, but the first day, let's just say the TV representatives to the panel were not exactly making contributions that would make you very happy if you were a chef. So people wanted well-done steak.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Did the fingers just go on the chalkboard?
Yes.
Someone was upset about their runny egg,
Oh, yeah.
which was poached.
Which was meant to be.
What a poached egg
I really
is.
just want a hardened egg.
So I came in day 2 and just looked like I was like a freaking genius at that point. And I didn't know
Who
what I
is
was
this
doing.
Russia?
But so a couple months later, Dara asked me if I would write about suburban restaurants. And Dara, to her credit, recognized that there was no way she was going to be able to go out to Waconia and Stillwater and objectively, well, she would have judged them objectively against restaurants in the city.
Sure.
And it's an absurd criteria, right? Because no normal person is thinking, should I drive to the restaurant that's 10 minutes from my house, or should I go 40 minutes to this place that's superior? That's just not the calculus that most people make.
Indeed.
So-
Especially given what you mentioned earlier, that a lot of folks just don't, by and large, don't go
They
out
just don't.
that often.
They
right?
don't. And so Dara asked me to do it, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed having, as someone who's been kind of an unbiased television journalist, being able to have an opinion and write it down and put it in print, but also be able to defend that opinion was very interesting. It was just kind of an exciting thing to do. And so from them, now I write for Minneapolis St. Paul. I do TV segments on Channel 4 every week, To Russia Eats. And those segments I've been doing for 3 years. And this week I was nominated for a Beard Award.
We were going to get to that, brother. Let's have a round of applause in the Alive and Social Studios for Jason DeRusha.
And
That's really cool. That is really cool and well-deserved. That nomination, my friend, well-deserved.
Well, I was astonished. And someone tweeted to me, they said that well, they didn't tag me in the tweet. I saw it later. But someone tweeted that my beard nomination shows that a non-culinary expert can become an excellent food journalist. And I just thought that was the nicest compliment.
It really
It
is.
is a really nice compliment.
And by the way, I'm currently working with a friend of yours, Mike Mitchelson, and he sends his salutations to you. But we were talking about what's unique is there's a lot of people who are bona fide writers and that have kind of launched out of the culinary field. But they're not always positive or objective or whatever. That sometimes they're just out there to, it seems like, settle personal scores. But you've done a really nice job, keeping it level across the table. And, I think everyone pretty much likes you. And that's got to make you feel good when you show up someplace.
It is nice. It's tricky. I mean, one of the things that becomes challenging is as you hang out in this world, you develop personal friendships. And so you don't want people to think. So, like, I'll give an example. My wife and I are good friends with Tim and Christy Niver, who own the strip club in St. Paul. I have never done a TV story about the strip club, which is kind of a raw deal for the strip club, which is an amazing restaurant.
Yes, it
and
is.
probably my favorite place to
Right.
go. But I think if I were to do a story on them, everyone would just be like, oh, it's his buddy.
Right.
So you try to be careful about that. Now, I'll recommend it to anybody on Twitter, which
Sure.
I'll still use that. But you try to be conscious of that. And people ask me a lot, like, oh, you get recognized, you get great service. So how can you objectively judge? You're getting the TV guy shows up at the restaurant service.
You know who's here tonight, the hostess is saying, or the host is saying,
Right.
DeRush is here.
And I've asked around because I used to think like, oh, I'm not getting anything special. And yes, I am. Okay. Like they know who I am.
Right.
If I go out to a suburban restaurant, nobody knows who I am. If I go to, well, let's just say there's a certain level of restaurant where they're going to know who I am. They just
course.
are. But I can pay pretty close attention to what's happening at the tables around me.
There you go.
And frankly, if I get
That's a good
great
point.
service that stands out from what everybody else is getting, that's extremely off-putting.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what people don't realize, it's not just about what's coming on your table. You've been around long enough to see what's going on around.
You can see.
I just slipped in the back door. I had to drop off something over at the Black Forest in South Minneapolis. They're getting ready to have their 50th anniversary.
Oh, cool.
Next
That's
month.
legendary.
Yeah. And but it was interesting. The kitchen was bigger than I anticipated. But
Holy
You've never
cow.
been in there.
not in the kitchen.
Okay.
And it was dust free. I've never seen a kitchen as clean in my life. So, it's the small things like that.
That
maybe
says a lot.
The
That says a
cushions
lot.
might be torn on the bar stool or whatever, but when a kitchen is clean and when the staff, their shirts are pressed, it goes a long way.
Indeed. Do
And
you?
it's not all about food, right? The other thing is when you show up at a place, no matter who you are, if you are running a restaurant that's good, you're not going to say Jason's here, BT's here, Klecko's here, and then be awesome.
Right.
Like you can maybe go from good to like pretty good,
That's right.
or you can go from great to awesome. I've seen restaurants that have a great night and have an awesome night, but you're not going to go from a crappy restaurant to a great restaurant because
Not going to
somebody's
happen.
there.
No,
just
it's not going to.
real.
Because you obviously don't have the skill sets in place already.
And let's be honest, whenever you're working with a team, there's some links that are stronger than others, and everybody, even at St. Agnes, we make mistakes. And when I go in and talk to a chef, I'll say, we're going to make a mistake, but the thing I want you to watch is how we correct it. And the thing, so when you go into a restaurant and if something comes out, and that's fine, but are they going to, comp you? Are they going to take care of you? Are they going to figure it out?
Exactly.
That's where their true
At least
colors
apologize.
really shine.
At least admit it.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
Have you had things like that happen? Again, you seem to get not so much preferential, but just maybe there's more attention paid to drushes in the house. But things happen,
Of
and
course.
you've written about dishes or experiences that weren't the best, and
Sure.
you own up to them because
Yeah.
that's the experience you had, and you're a journalist.
I was at a restaurant 2 weeks ago for brunch and ordered a Bloody Mary, and the chaser and the server spilled the chaser all over my pants. And the paper menu on the table.
No.
So, what would you do if you were a server in that circumstance?
Well, I'd comp you the drink right off the bat.
Apologize profusely.
Yeah.
Clean up.
Get a towel and make sure that was
Free
taken
drink.
care of. Yeah, definitely the free drink.
A lot of great options there, none of which happened. She looked at me and said, so I start, at first I'm stunned, and then I get my napkin and start wiping it off my pants.
Your paper napkin, probably.
I think it was a cloth.
Was it clothy?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I did have black pants on. It was a white napkin. Whatever. Let's not get too picky about it.
Right.
This wasn't exactly a white tablecloth operation. She said, "Good thing you have a napkin."
Oh!
What? I just couldn't believe it.
It sure is.
Well, let me ask you this, Jason. This might even be a worse crime. I was having a Bloody Mary a couple weeks ago at a newer restaurant, and there was no pickles or no olives. Not even a celery stalk or a salami stick.
In the bloody.
Nothing.
That's shameful.
Nothing.
I mean, at that point, you're essentially drinking just tomato sauce
Very
with
seldom.
With some
do I-
vodka in it, yeah.
Very seldom do I open my mouth, but that was.
Was it a mistake or that was their thing?
No,
That was it?
their. They had jalapeno infusion, and so that was supposed to.
That was the big
but
deal.
we want junk in the trunk.
We
when
do.
we're,
We do.
with the Mary.
Where do you come down on the Bloody Mary bar? The do-it-yourself Bloody Mary.
You know, I don't like it. I mean, some people do. It depends, but when I'm out, I want to be served because I serve
Yep.
people
Yep.
every minute of my life. So when I'm out, but you know who makes the great Bloody Mary too is Moscow on the Hill.
Yes.
With that, what is it?
All those
the
infused,
horseradish.
those
The
infused
horseradish.
vodkas, yeah. Oh, those
That's
are
pretty
great.
good. And
That is great.
Go down to Glockenspiel and they have the Scary Mary with the Jägermeister in it. And that's
Okay.
that's a whole nother.
Nice.
It's got another little angle to it then.
It's a different
Yeah.
kind of brunch.
I'm with you though. I have a Bloody Mary bar at my house, and I don't want to go. I don't want to make it. And why do people get so excited about like bacon and salami sticks that have been sitting on a table for 3 hours?
yeah.
Like, oh, I get to make my own. I just
I'm spearing my own sausage and
don't
pepper.
understand.
It's
like-
just like home.
yeah, I'm not going to go back and make the bacon. Like, why do I make? I just don't understand. I
I
don't
got a
get it.
really good vision in my head now of the DeRusha House in Maple Grove, and not that there's a full bar there. Now all I'm envisioning
It's
is
a pretty aggressive bar.
I know, but now, but because of what you said, I'm envisioning just a singular standalone. All it is Bloody Marys.
Just
I have a Bloody Mary bar at home, Jason.
Maybe I
Rosen.
should wheel it out, have it on a cart.
Got a cart going on.
I don't want the whole day to turn to alcohol, but since I do have Jason here, I want him to settle a bet. We're having cocktails at Four Paws recently, right?
Right.
A couple guys hanging out, drinking Manhattans.
Perfect.
Jason, you're there. You finish Manhattan. Sherry's there. There's no girl. So what do you do if you're not with your wife or daughter or whatever? What do you do with the cherry?
What do you do with the cherry?
There was a big fight. Some guys were saying you get to eat the cherry. Others were saying you can't eat the cherry. You
I don't know.
You have to give it to, a woman or your partner or something like that. So I mean,
Yeah.
BT.
I'm eating the cherry.
You gonna eat it?
I'm eating that maraschino cherry.
Okay.
Oh yeah, darn right I am.
Yeah, I mean, as am I. But I was.
I'm kind of cheap, so like if someone had served me a cherry, I feel like I want to get my money's
Right.
worth.
Here's the weird thing is that I hate maraschino cherries.
Well, then you're
I
not.
hate
So if
them.
somebody offered one to you, you'd
No.
absolutely
Oh,
refuse
thank
it.
you.
Well,
Yeah, thank
Did
you.
this
no.
have the maraschino, or was this like a real cherry?
No, it was a maraschino,
Yeah.
but I was told that Don Draper would never eat the cherries.
Probably true.
So
But Don just got out of the
Yeah,
Abbey.
yeah.
Just got out of rehab. You do have to factor that in.
But Cherry notwithstanding, he's turned off from everything now.
It happens.
Do you have you ever considered this? You brought up Dara Moskowitz Grumdahl, and I remember back in the day, Dara would wear those funny costumes. She'd wear those disguises. She'd wear those wigs and
Yeah.
crazy glasses, which after a fashion, which wasn't too long of a fashion, obviously weren't disguises at all because there's
That's
Dara,
what-
there's
that's what she
Dara,
looked like, right?
yeah, right. Have you ever considered doing that, or that probably just wouldn't work at all, would it? You probably can't really disguise Jason DeRusha, some thick walrus type mustache or a goatee or
Well, I used to when I was reviewing. So I don't consider myself a critic or a reviewer. I'm more of
an experiencer.
I don't know what I
You
am
write about your
exactly. Right.
experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when I was reviewing, I would make reservations under the name of whoever, one of the other people in my
Okay.
cast.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't make reservation under my own name. So at least they couldn't prepare in that respect.
Like try to get you a better table based on that, or any,
Yeah,
or know certainly in advance that you were on the way.
If you're a good restaurant, you should be looking through your list of open table reservations or called in reservations, and you should probably be Googling those people, right, before you get in. I would think you would. I've been told that's what restaurants do, that they check out the names of people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
it wouldn't surprise me, but
wouldn't you want that information if you were running a restaurant? I sure would.
Sure.
Yeah, who's coming in? Oh, is this person whoever? This person's a CEO. It's just, part of taking care of people is knowing who they are. And I think that's pretty standard procedure at a good restaurant. So I would use a friend's name or whatever.
Yeah.
But now I think, short of disguising my voice, I'll be honest, I think I get recognized more by sound than I do by sight. So people will be behind me and say, "Oh, Jason?" I'm like,
yeah.
It's okay. I just think, I also make it a practice. I made one mistake. Well, I've made many mistakes, but I made one mistake using social media where I had a very bad experience at a restaurant, and I tweeted very vaguely about it.
But everybody knew through the vague haze who you were talking about?
Well, I tweeted, if you are considering going to restaurant, you might want to ask me first.
Okay.
Because it was just a bad experience, and it was a place that had incredible positive buzz.
So how was that met?
Widespread scorn and hatred.
But let me ask this: how did people understand then if it was what you said was vague?
Very vague.
I couldn't figure that out. How did folks figure out who you were talking about?
Well, I did mention the name of the restaurant.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay. So you're just not saying.
I was just vague. I didn't say this sucked. I said this. Please talk to me about it first.
Okay, gotcha.
And
All
so it was just a bad idea. And I think from my standpoint in the community, it is not my job to be the terror down of bad restaurants. I think my job is to be the booster of good restaurants.
So how do you pick which restaurants you're going to go to and review?
It's a tricky thing because I have my favorites, and I feel like I don't get to go to those places often enough because I want to keep trying out the new spots. And
Now, it's part of your gig to try out the new spots.
yeah,
too.
a little bit. The other part of this is I don't get paid really for most of what I do.
Right.
I get paid for writing for Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine, and I'm not even really reviewing for them. I do get paid to blog, and I get some money for expenses, but I'm only expected to blog twice a month. So all the tweeting, all the other stuff is more just I enjoy it.
What you do.
I like to share. People have come to me and ask questions, and so I'm not getting paid for it. So it is funny. You think my wife will be like, do we have to go to that place? So some places I'm assigned to go to, but like this weekend we are doing a little staycation in town, and we have made reservations at the Bachelor Farmer because we haven't been there in a while, and I think their concept has changed significantly from when they first opened. And he's been nominated twice now, the chef there for a Best Chef Beard Award. So we're going to go there for dinner. And so we try to bounce around a little bit, along with going to our favorites.
Make your way to the Marvel, of course. I think Pip Hansen's out of town this week, but he's on his way to London now. So the bartending guy that made it all happen at Marvel Bar will be exiting soon.
You guys all travel a fair amount. Don't you think the bartending game in this town is really on par with what you'll see even in Chicago?
Yeah.
I really think.
Yeah.
I think in some respects we're ahead of a lot of the major cities.
Well, and I say this very respectfully, but I think some of the bar workers are maybe even higher up than the chefs and the bakers myself. It's really progressive right now.
It's high level stuff.
Yeah, it really is. And we're really, really fortunate because, that's where the profit margin is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the reason that restaurants are still able to sell entrees for $20 or $18 because they're getting you for $12, $14 on a cocktail.
For a high-end cocktail, yeah. A good margin on that for sure. And then you've got the whole world of business that's wrapping itself around the bartenders and the mixologists. And I know a lot of them hate the term mixologist, but I use it distinctly here because you got the Bitter Cube guys, you got Nick Kosovich and Ira Koplovitz, and you've got Dan Oskey and other people that are creating these products that complement the bar industry and complement the cocktail and beverage industry that really showcase those guys as chefs in their own right.
Well, they've raised the innovation, exponentially over the the last few years. It's just, crazy what the things they can do now.
And now we're getting all of the craft spirits being distilled. I'll be interested to see what happens with the kind of distillery tap room phenomenon.
Sure.
Color me skeptical right now. I think that the spirits people want to tap into what's happened with craft beer.
Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
But I'll tell you what, tossing down 2 or 3 IPAs on a night out is quite different than drinking 2 gin cocktails.
Yeah, it is.
And I think people are going to be afraid that they're going to get drunk. I really think they are. And so I'll be very curious to see how that works out.
That's a good point. That is a good point.
It's just not, beer is a social drink. Beer is a let's hang out, even though it's become super snobby with the IBU and all of this. The beer people are ruining beer. Wine.
I second that.
As a wine drinker, I am now not nearly as snobby as the beer crowd.
Well, I was just going to say I'd rather hang out with my wine friends than my beer friends right now.
How did that happen?
Exactly.
How did that happen? I don't know, but I just think it's different, and so we'll see.
Well, while we got him here, let me ask you real quick, Jason. A good example would be. Everyone's talking about Revival. It's launching.
Today, they opened today, right?
Yep, fried chicken and, some of the best chefs in the Twin Cities. So, this is what you do for a living. What do you do when you have to, at some point, cover it after or while 47 other people are doing the exact same thing? Does that make it hard for you to come up with an angle that maybe is unique or...
You know what I usually do? I usually do nothing. I will let
everybody else do it.
I'll let everybody else do it.
Okay.
This weekend on CCO, what I'm doing a story on? Jones in the Park.
Oh, Highland Park.
In Highland Park, which I just love those 2 women.
Yep.
And Susan and Joan.
Yeah.
And Jones in the Park doesn't get a lot of love. They do get a lot of love from their customers.
Sure.
They were one of Open Table's top 100 restaurants in the nation.
Well,
in the nation?
Wow.
In the nation.
I'll tell you, I for 20-some years, I lived blocks away from there. And, they're there. 6 hours before the doors even open, and no one works harder than they do.
And the story is... Oh, it's the best TV story because you go back in the kitchen of this, not quite fine dining, but close to fine dining restaurant. And what do they have? Pizza oven. Mm-hmm. They cook everything in a pizza oven.
Everything.
Because they spent every last dime they had to buy that restaurant, which used to be a pizza place.
Right.
They spent a month cooking pizzas and found that selling $11 pizzas when you're right next to a Domino's doesn't work so well.
Right.
And so they thought, well, we know how to do high heat steak cooking. Let's see if we can use these ovens. Susan Dunlop, the chef, tried to convince me. She's like, these are our double-decker ovens. I'm like, come on, Susan.
In the pizza oven.
That's a pizza oven.
I know what that is.
Like, that's a pizza oven. I said, do you think anyone else in Minnesota is using pizza ovens to make, salmon and all this stuff? She was baking bread. I wonder what you think about this.
That's great.
So she does this Chef's Night Off event.
Right.
And so as part of this, everything she sells, everything is local. So that means she gets crazy about it. So no lemon. No cheating by squirting a little lemon to bring out some
So
acidity.
you're literally, I see what you're getting.
No olive oil.
Everything is local.
So she can't use commercial yeast because that would be cheating. So she is taking wheat, grinding it up, and mixing it with water, and that's what she created a starter.
Well, actually, if she came and talked to Coleco, I could have.
You could have hooked her up.
Well, I could have hooked her up with MDOT, is a Minnesota company that's doing some fresh yeast. It's terrific. They're pretty new, but
It's fun. I thought it was a neat
That's a
thing
really
as
great
a chef
idea.
to embrace. You're like,
and,
that's cool.
Once you've been doing something for a few years, you want to have a little niche or whatever. However, I want my lemon. Right?
Right.
I want my lemon.
One night a week, or
Right.
one night a
No,
month.
I'm-
One night a month.
No,
right?
I apply and ample parking always.
So nice.
So,
But I get to zig a little bit when everybody's zagging. Everyone's going to
Good for
chase
you.
the new. But the joy of the TV bit for me is that to most people, every freaking restaurant is new. It just is.
Yeah.
Most people don't have this catalog where
Yep.
they know all of these places.
Well, what's interesting, once again, 51 years old, and my generation growing up, our family had 3 restaurants that we frequented, and we would, kind of go around and around and around. And
so did we.
And,
As
and
kids,
but
same
nowadays, a lot of people, from 20 to, my age, I mean, you're lucky if they come to see you twice a year because there's so many options now. So many options. Once again, back to Black Forest, when I was in there, eventually I got to make sausage with the owner, Erich Christ, and he was telling me when he started 50 years ago, there was 3 restaurants on the entire strip, and he said now you look out the door, you can count 14 different restaurants.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's just, so...
There's
Yeah.
probably
the
too,
Black Forest was the anchor there, and that was it.
there
Yeah.
may be too many restaurants. I was talking to a restaurant owner the other day, trying to get a handle on: do we have too few cooks or too many restaurants?
Yeah, I was sitting on a panel with some young chefs, and a guy from Chipotle was there. He was the recruiter. He said this time last year in the Midwest there was 400,000 jobs in the hospitality industry. This year, 800,000. And, you go on Minnesota Chefs and some of these sites, and, I mean, they just can't get them. So, I mean, if you can't find a chef, try finding someone who knows how to bake and has to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning, So it's a whole different racket now.
Yeah. And there's shortages all across the board.
96 more restaurants in the Twin Cities than there were last year.
It's crazy. We don't have that kind of population increase.
And I was talking to Brian Skedad. He's been down at the Loon, for
Yeah.
100 years, right?
My fellow Brian Turner.
And he was telling me, I said, it's got to be great being next to the new ballpark. And he said, yeah, but there's all kinds of, vulture restaurants that have popped up with $5 chicken wings, $3 tall boys. And he said they won't be in business in a year to 18 months, but it's enough to really, kick it to you. So,
That's right.
So frequent the Loon.
You love the Loon.
Give the legendary ones, the ones that have been doing it for a while, the love. That's for sure.
It is nice. I do have that freedom to do that, and so we can focus on some of those places that have been around for a while.
And like you mentioned with Jones, I mean, places
They've been
like
open
that.
for what, 4 or 5 years now, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, or even those that haven't been open for a while, like Jones, but those that deserve that sort of extra bump, that extra
Absolutely.
love.
Yeah.
You got that.
I
right.
just want a great story, and I have made it a policy that I'll never put anybody on TV that is a place that I wouldn't feel comfortable telling my friends to go to. So I think that part of, I don't do as much maybe press release chasing as some TV people do. Mm-hmm. But I have the luxury that, no one else in town is really doing TV reporting on places. Lots of TV stations are bringing chefs in to have them cook, but
that happens every day.
or
right.
they're doing stories about openings. But we're not doing that. We're just doing something a little different.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna take today's platform as a unique opportunity to just say you've already said that you can't do the strip club because those are your guys over there.
Right.
But I am the king of St. Paul, so I am going to tell you that Swedish meatballs, lavender infused, JT Fratke. So I'm really going to hope at some time for me that you'll go over there and give those guys the love they deserve because they are, they do really good in St. Paul, but I need some more people from Minneapolis to get over to the strip club and just see, the East Side just won the whole Eat Street competition in the
right.
Pioneer
That's right.
Press.
Yep.
We are doing Cook St. Paul. I was there this morning.
Excellent.
Cook St. Paul up on
Excellent.
Payne Avenue will be next week. My
Nice.
story next week.
Excellent. Have you been over to Tongue and Cheek?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I like the layout.
Haven't been there yet myself.
Aesthetics and-
Waiting
Very
to.
nice.
Yeah,
Very
waiting
nice.
to. It's good to have a complicit spouse, too. Like you said, you and Alyssa, I mean, that's what you do for entertainment together. That's really got to help that narrative for you as far as going out and enjoying your time with your wife and enjoying it. It's a work thing, too.
And we bring the kids. So we bring the kids to great restaurants. My kids are 9 and 7, and the 9-year-old's favorite food is sushi. The 7-year-old really likes pizzeria. And we take them out with us.
Yeah.
So
I've ate sushi with your kid.
you have, yes, you have.
We
That's
have.
right.
We
yeah.
did. We had sushi together. Klecko, Give us a couple quick minutes on St. Agnes and also your mayoral aspirations. St. Agnes Wholesale Baking Company, been around for how long here?
I don't know, 20-some years.
Lot of
three
years.
different ownerships, wholesale. You don't even know you're eating it half the times because, Excel Center, Mystic Lake Casino, Grand Avenue, Hennepin Avenue, Washington. I mean, we're everywhere, hundreds of accounts. And we design products, St. Paul Hotel, that black bread with the raisins, Hungarian raisin rye. We designed that for the Archduke of Austria. I have a wild rice sourdough over here that I designed for when Gorbachev and Perpich broke. It was the bread that ended the Cold War. So,
Nice.
But
It's the least you could do.
yeah, that's what we've.
He had his assignment. He fulfilled it well.
And that's what we've been doing. We design destination products for people and just staple things. We're not necessarily the highest end bread in town, but we're certainly not the lowest. We want to make it an affordable bread that's good and fresh that people can eat every day. So it's maybe a little bit more quality of ingredients in a gas station, but you're not going to end up making a mortgage payment for a loaf of bread.
Yeah. You spend a lot of time in the lab, then, so to speak, and then a lot of time on the road making sales.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Jason, before we get to the Foodie Friday 5, we ask all of our guests the same 5 questions at the end of the show. We got about 10 more minutes left on the Foodie Friday podcast with BT and Lydia. Tell us about the new show that you've got going on at WCCO TV Channel 4.
We have a new show called WCCO Mid-Morning. It's going to be on from 9 until 10 weekdays. Kylie Burse, who is an extremely talented weather person at our station.
And a really great personality.
So sweet,
Yeah.
so nice, so different from me. So Kylie will be the co-host of this show, so the two of us will do it together. The cool thing about this show is, so people love local programming. It is amazing. Like, local TV stations got away from that. And, there was a time when TV stations were producing entertainment shows, all sorts of stuff.
Kids shows, you name it.
And we got away from it, and people love it. Like, no matter what you put on, they will watch a local program instead of, Live with Kelly and Michael. And those are very good shows, and you think, wow, all right. So we are going to do a show in that 9 o'clock hour. What we're going to do differently is we will do regular news and a full weather forecast. And right now, most of what's available in that 9 o'clock time slot is, almost entirely entertainment, chat, lifestyle, that kind of stuff. So we're going to do some more news, and then we are going to bring in like a panel kind of situation, kind of like The Talk or The View does. But we'll have our journalists on that panel. So we've been doing rehearsals all week. Today we had Heather Brown, who does the Good Question segment for us. Heather talked about her good question this week about lie detectors. And because there was a news story where someone failed a lie detector test. So Heather talked about, like, what is it? Why do people – everyone knows that lie detector tests are kind of BS, right? But yet if you hear someone failed a lie detector test, you think guilty.
Exactly.
They're guilty.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting. We had Rachel Slavic, another reporter, was on our panel, and she was talking about a story she did about a topic that makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Suggested tipping, and how kind of the iPadization of coffee shops, sandwich shops, has taken the sandwich or the tip jar, which I think used to be kind of a ugh.
Yeah,
Are they
what am I
really?
gonna do?
They're really asking me for a tip for this.
Yeah.
Now, when you use the iPad, like, it's right on there. Sometimes it'll say $1, $2, $3. I've seen it where it suggests 25%.
What?
Like 25% tip. And
I've done the whole order myself. Yeah.
But then you think about it. You go to a bar, you order a beer, and you give $1.
Yeah.
You're like, well, why did I do that? So I don't know. It's just it was a very interesting story, made for good conversation. More than you could do in a regular newscast, so we'll have all that kind of stuff in there.
And people, there's a lot of time distortion. I mean, you've got folks that are starting their day a little later. I start my shift at noon or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's their morning.
When I was home with my kids working at night, I didn't get control of the TV until they got on the bus to go to school at 8:30. So this may be your first chance to get news in the morning. So we're pumped about it.
And when do you start?
We start Monday, the 30th.
That's coming right up here.
Yep.
All right, very good. Congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you. We're excited.
Looking forward to seeing that new show. All right, we've got about 10 questions to get to because it's the Foodie Friday 5, so we're going to ask you each 5 questions here. So that means about 30 seconds per response. I'm just saying, we got about 5 minutes left on the Foodie Friday show here. Lyd, you going to take the lead with
sure
Klecko
am.
first here?
Yep, Klecko, what's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook?
Apple crisp.
Apple crisp, was that home ec?
That was home ec 7th grade.
Dig it. What about you, Jason? What's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook?
I think mine was a home ec situation as well, but it was it was like these cheesy breadsticks that we made, and I remember I made them for the first time in 7th grade, and still had that recipe at home from Miss Wunderlich, the 7th grade home ec teacher
In Chicago, I'm
in
taking.
Chicago,
Yeah.
and I was kind of a fat kid, and I made those things and would eat like the whole batch, like through high school.
That's a great teacher name for a home ec
Yeah, it
teacher,
sure was.
by the way, Ms. Wunderlich. All righty, Klecko. We like to demystify the world of food here on the Foodie Friday show, but often people can look down their nose at you when you maybe order something that would seem pretentious. What's the most pretentious food that you crave?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm all about champagne and caviar.
That's sweet.
And Alexander Dixon, if you remember him, on Selby Avenue, he had Xander's, and he said the one thing in the Midwest that we don't understand is that champagne goes with everything.
With
it's not
everything.
just a special
true.
event.
So true.
And champagne, Russian, Polish, Czech, you get it.
Yeah,
So,
indeed.
We did have a little brief flare up of this like champagne fried chicken thing last year.
Right.
I
There
was,
loved
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It was-
Right.
It's a great combo.
yeah, but I mean, champagne goes with everything.
French fries. It goes with everything except maybe oysters. I think it doesn't always go with oysters.
Right on. Props to that location, too, where Chef Matt's got the cheeky monkey deli to this day. Right on.
Absolutely.
Mr. DeRusha, the most pretentious food you crave
Foie gras is definitely the most pretentious thing. Love it.
in any form, and
Any
the fried thing, the just take your knife and get into it thing.
The only way I've had it that I don't love it is I've had it kind of as a hot dog, and it just was too much. It was too much.
Huh.
Yeah.
With a casing?
In a bun, you mean?
Yeah,
or
in a casing.
In a casing, I see. Okay. Well, I never had that. No.
There's a place called Hot Doug's, I believe, in Chicago.
Okay.
Now closed, but
Well, yeah, their expenses were probably through the roof. A foie dog was probably $15 wholesale to them. You got to charge you $30
it was
to
a
make
little,
any money.
the
on
flavor
that.
was a little too much.
Yeah. All righty.
Klecko, which person in your life taught you the most about food?
Oh, boy, that's a wonderful question. Dick Kiewis, he was the man who ran Supermoms. And so I really got my big break at like 23 years old. I designed all the breads for the SA gas stations.
Cool.
And he looked like Jabba the Hutt. And he had like Mr. T Bling, and he just screamed and yelled. But he loved me. And, so he didn't teach me just about food. He taught me a lot about life, too. And no one knows where he is. He's that kind of guy. Just fell off the map. But Dick Kiewis was it.
That's nice.
Cool. Supermoms is probably the reason we don't have Dunkin' Donuts or 7-Eleven in this town.
Well,
Yep.
it's a huge reason.
It's huge.
It's a
Yep.
huge reason because Dunkin' has been trying to sell franchises here for years. They can't get it.
They can't hold. Yeah, and they used to be around, but they're not anymore. Yeah.
Jason, which person in your life taught you the most about food?
It's probably my wife, really. I mean, because we've gone on the journey together. We cook together, we eat together, and through that, I feel like we've learned the most. Obviously, my mom was a huge influence because she cooked mostly from scratch for us every night. Every night.
That's a thing of beauty.
Yeah. We didn't eat out that much. It was nothing fancy, but that, to me, what I learned from her was about the personal and maybe spiritual connection that you can have with a meal.
Totally.
That's what a meal is about. It's about sitting around a table, having a conversation,
And cooking with love.
cooking with love.
No wonder you love those experiences you have with your wife. I mean, you guys spend
Absolutely.
a lot of time looking across at each other at a table and sharing those emotions together.
Trying to talk about more than youth soccer.
Trying.
Not
always successful.
No,
Trying.
we're always successful. We do not care about that one bit.
Klecko, the smell of this food makes you feel the hungriest.
I've really changed my way of eating in the last couple of years, especially in the last year, and I've kind of I like food too much, so I've knocked about 90% of it out of my life. But I mean, my hodge to beauty is Kramarczuk's Sunday morning brunch.
Oh, yeah.
And when I walk by those cabbage rolls, it's like the Saints of Warsaw. I'm telling you, cabbage rolls really do it for me. But everything there is, it's the highlight of my week.
Yeah. And but a lot of those calories are not working out for the individual man right here, the Klecko Nation, the king of the Klecko Nation.
Well, I'm telling you, you got to be careful. In our industry, and for me, it's really hard in sales. Hey, here, try this, drink this, eat this, and now I just have to go up to them and say, I want to be beautiful, and so I'm prioritizing vanity over comfort. But it's really hard.
Yep.
I've had to choose portion sizes and this and that, but and part of doing that is to desensitize yourself from all the romance. I mean, Jason's talking about romance. I'm trying to do my best to crush romance, except for I give myself Sunday morning because that's the only time the phones don't ring.
Jason, the smell of this food makes you feel the hungriest.
It's bread.
It's bread,
There's
like
no
we talked
question.
about earlier.
Yeah. It's the strongest smell, I think.
Lydia?
All right. Last and final question. Klecko, what's your guilty pleasure food?
My guilty pleasure food, without a doubt, is cheese. And, I'll sit there and, Super Bowl, Academy Awards, whatever. I'll go out and I'll buy the most expensive and the stinkiest and the best. And I'll probably have like 20 different cheese and then, get like, high-end rye crackers or things like this. But cheese is it for me. But I want it to be good. And if it's French, bonus points for that.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jason?
It's pretty close for me. We love cheese, and we'll often do a dinner with cheese and salami. And for me, I'm going to say the opposite. It's the salami, the charcuterie.
Yeah, good
just
for you.
love it. Like sausage, cased meats, just love it.
And you had a great time visiting Mike Phillips at the Red Table Meat Company, didn't you?
Man, what an innovator Kieran is with that complex over there with
Absolutely.
Red Table Meats. I had some Red Table this week, in fact, picked it up at the grocery store. And how remarkable is our world today, though, that I can go to the grocery store in Maple Grove and get some Minneapolis-made, world-class meat.
Yeah, or the cheeses, too, that Ruben's doing over there, same building. So all of that, the creamery that he's got going on. Gentlemen, we got to wrap up the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Jason DeRusha.
This was fun. Thanks, guys.
An hour goes by like just a few minutes, and you guys really made it a pleasure. Good luck on the new show.
Thank you.
And we'll tune in at 9 o'clock on WCCO TV, and we'll continue to watch for DeRusha Eats, both on television and monthly in Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine.
Thank you.
Good to have you, my friend. Klecko, all the best to you. The mayoral campaign's going to kick in high gear a little bit downstream. But
2017, but some of us have started already. So, BT, Lydia, thanks for having me. Jason, once again, congratulations on your nomination and pending victory.
Yes.
Capital City, I'm on my way home.
Indeed. Next week on Foodie Friday, Chef Sameh Wadi of Saffron and World Street Kitchen and the WSK Food Truck, who has a new cookbook coming out, too. Mm-hmm. Chef Sameh will be joining us, and from Pastis Wine Company and Vintage U, wine guy Bill Coy will also be a part of the show. My name is Brian Turner. You can call me BT. There's my daughter, Lydia.
Hello. Stay fresh, Podcastville.
Thanks for listening to Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network.